less about me inspiring you, and it should be more about you inspiring me with some of the ideas and things that you guys are working on. This isn't, oh, there we go. Great. So I need you to do me a favor here to get started. I need you to light my phone up. That's my mobile number. And I need somebody who's going to be our guinea pig or our test case through today, because I'm all about real life, real application, how these things actually work in starting a business. So if you have a business idea that you haven't started, or you have started, or you're down the road, if you could send me a text of what your idea is, please keep it as brief as possible. And in the next few minutes, I'll be selecting who is going to be put on the spot. I'll embarrass you a little bit, but hopefully not too much. We'll talk about your business, and what we're going to do is we're going to take your business from the day you found it all the way through an IPO. It will include initial funding, seed funding, angel funding, Series A, B, and C funding, and then it will include an exit at IPO. And we'll walk through how a cap table works, how dilution works, and kind of lessons learned along the way. So if you guys will light my phone up if you've got an idea that you want me to take through that process. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think part of the reason that Shauna asked me to come and speak today or share some experience with all of you today is most recently I was hired in as the president of a medical device manufacturer, and we sold that business. And I don't know, if I say the term EBITDA, raise your hand if you have an idea of maybe what EBITDA means. Okay. EBITDA is a calculation to determine how much a business is worth, and you go on multiples. And in the scenario, our industry and our space, it was really common to be able to get an 8x EBITDA. So 8 times of this number. That's basically a way to measure the business's ability to generate free cash flow. We actually sold this business for over 20x EBITDA, which is unheard of in the space that we're in. And so part of what we're going to talk about is some of the things you can learn about how to maximize value from a shareholder perspective, and just that whole entire process. All right, have you guys been texting me? Let's see. I've got one text so far? Really? I heard you guys were all into entrepreneurship. Or are you just afraid I'm going to embarrass you too much? There we go. Now you're lighting me up. Awesome. So I'm going to put this up. You guys can look at that. These are going to be the key takeaways. I like to start the class by telling you what the key takeaways are that I want you to learn, and then you hold me accountable at the end, and we'll make sure that you guys have had a chance to learn all that. There's an animation studio, an MLS platform for commercial real estate, dating center, wireless headphone earbuds, Utah local small business customer service consulting, website and app, food point and online delivery site, multi-page music presentation folder. I've seen that. Is that a Kickstarter project? Okay, I've seen that one. Baby running stroller, daily deal hunting site, sunglasses that have easily interchangeable eyepieces, digitally collect and save change and coins. Oh yeah, sorry. That's where you want to send your idea to. Okay. I wish that I could put this up. I should have brought a poll anywhere and let you guys vote on which one you want to do. I think I'm going to take wireless headphones. Wireless headphone earbuds. Who is that? Come on up. You're the man of the hour. You have no idea, but we're about to take you big time. You're going to become the CEO of a publicly traded company. You could sit right there in that green chair if you like. What's your name, by the way?
Blair.
Blair, and you're an Angels fan?
Yes, sir.
You are awesome. I love the Angels. I grew up going to Angels games every summer.
I was born in Anaheim.
Nice. Upland is where I grew up, not too far away. First name again?
Blair.
Blair. So Blair, tell us about what your product is.
It's wireless headphones. Basically, you have the two earbuds that you can put in, and then a connection that goes through the headphone part of your iPod or iPhone, whatever special device, and through Bluetooth or through this device that it can project music through the wireless headphones.
Very nice. And do you keep the headphones in all the time, or you just put them in when you know you want to listen to music?
You can put them in, you can take one out whenever, it's just whatever situation you're in.
And they're what, about that big?
Yeah.
And do you have any type of working prototype yet?
No, I don't.
Okay, so no working prototype, but it's a great idea. So this is a perfect example. Do you have a name for your company, Blair? Who wants to name it? Give us a name. He doesn't have a name.
Blair.
Blair, yeah, because it's blaring in the ears.
Blair.
Blair Buds. Very nice. A bunch of branding experts. I love it. Okay, cool. All right, here's what we're going to do. Key takeaways today, Blair, that you're going to learn and everybody else is going to learn, but you up close and personal. Maximizing the value of the enterprise is needed throughout the life cycle of the business to maximize shareholder return. What is it? Sorry, it's just a lot of corporate garbly goop. My first day in MBA school, I sat down and they said, what is the role of the enterprise? Why does the business exist? Anybody have a thought as to what the professor professed to be? Maximize shareholder value. That's the only reason the business exists. Maximize shareholder value. Does it exist to employ your unemployable brother-in-law because your wife said he needs a job? Well, that could be part of shareholder value if needed, right? But maximizing shareholder value. Shareholder value is kind of a nebulous concept for entrepreneurs, startup businesses, family businesses, lifestyle businesses. It means something completely different up on the corporate level. When we sold our company just recently, it was bought by the 75th largest company in the world. $18 billion a year in sales. I added it up because I was trying to help my team understand what just happened and the magnitude of it. I said, if we continue to grow on our pace and we continue to sell the product on the growth path that we're on for the next 80 years, we will not have sold as much as this company does in 1 month. That's how big this is. 60,000 employees worldwide, massive organization. We were bought by, and now I'm leading the integration into all of their systems, processes, all their global partners, and everything that goes on inside the business. Why did they buy us? Because they're focused on maximizing shareholder value at a big-time corporate level. Stock price is everything. What the analysts have to say and think about our business and how it integrates into their business and all the other businesses is a very, very big deal because that stock price goes up and down every day, and they live and die by that stock price. Maximizing shareholder value is why the entity exists. Second, the main driver of valuation of the enterprise is its ability to generate free cash flow sustainably into the future. Who's heard of Vivint? Who's heard of a $2 billion valuation on Vivint? Why did they get that valuation? Because they have customers under contract, and statistically they can show even when they come out of that 5-year contract, the customers never leave and they keep paying at a very, very high retention rate. It's about cash flow. And they stopped selling off accounts, right? Remember that you sell it and then the summer sales team goes out and sells the account, gets paid a big pop, the company gets paid a big pop, and then the sales rep gets paid their pop. And then they would sell that account off to a servicing institution, right? Well, they said, well, we'll do that ourselves. And they built out this complete cash flow generating machine. Wall Street loves that. Investors love that. Ultimately, that's what drives enterprise value. And the last one is needing less money will always benefit founders and early investors. And I'm going to prove that to you. No, you have to stay. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So, maximize the shareholder value. What does that mean and how does all this work? I promised Sean I would talk to you guys a little bit about corporate governance and what that means. So we have Blair, California Angels man, Blair's buds. He takes them to the Angels games and he plugs them in so he can listen to the announcer, the play-by-play. Blair starts up his company. Who is the shareholder? Blair, right? And then if he were to get any investors, they would be shareholders. Who is his board of directors, and what does the board of directors do? We'll skip that one. Who's the CEO of Blair's Buds? You want to be CEO, right? You're the man? All right. So what does all this stuff, how does this mean? What does corporate governance mean? Very simply, corporate governance is when you have shareholders, they elect a board of directors to represent them. And then the board of directors' job, it's bigger than this, but it's basically one thing. The board of directors' job is to decide who to hire and who to fire as the CEO of the company. Basically it. There's a bunch of other governance and audit committees and compensation committees and all these other things, but at the end of the day, their number one decision is who is going to run this company. So, if you have a company with millions and millions of shareholders, they elect a board of directors. They have an annual meeting. The board of directors is elected to represent them. They then hire the person that they think is the best fit to maximize shareholder return. If they hire a bad CEO, who do the shareholders fire? They fire the board of directors. If the board of directors doesn't get to the CEO and fire him first and get somebody new in before the shareholders get pretty unhappy about the way things are going. So who decides who's on the board of directors? It's the shareholders, right? So today, Blair, who do you want to be on your board of directors if you own 100% of the company?
Loyalty friends or family.
Friends, family? I think that's a bad idea. You're the board of directors, man. It's your company. You're coming out of the ground. You want to have advisors. This differs from a board of advisors. It means people who are out there looking out for your best interests or trying to help you or give you advice, but you're not compensating them, and you don't have to take their advice.
When they haven't invested in your company, so they don't have that external motivator for you to make more money.
That's right. That's right. I mean, they may have other internal motivations, but that's a completely different topic probably. So it's board of directors for a brand new company, Blair. Really simple, right? Piece of cake, easy. This is at the startup or at the founding of a company. Now I'm going to take you through an entire cap table. And this is going to, we're going to talk about what happens financially to the company, what happens to corporate governance and the board of directors, and then we're going to talk about what ultimately happens to the shareholders' return on investment. Right? So I have to get a couple of assumptions out of the way first. I'm going through this like it's a C corporation. There's only one class of stock that will ever be issued. Why is that a big deal? Well, because usually at different rounds, you have different classes of stock that have different rights. Sometimes, we did a deal recently where we went in a preferred seed round, and I negotiated into the deal that we had a permanent seat on the board of directors, regardless of how big or small it ever went. Because that was a big deal. We needed to make sure that we were involved in the decision making from the very beginning. This was a really brand new, it's a pre-revenue startup company. What I'm disclosing to you right now is in this example, there's only one class of stock. There's no special rights, there's no special terms, no liquidation preferences, none of those things. I mentioned there are no liquidation preferences, other special terms, no stock options issued to employees, only because that would complicate my model. You would normally want to, definitely, 5 to 10% of your cap table should be allocated towards your management team and your key employees. Each round represents a potential group of investors. And no liquidation event for any investors represented. So in other words, there's nobody taking money off the table. There's no owner saying, well, in this round, I want to sell some of my stock and take that money as just a payday and go and pay off my house or build a new house or buy a boat or whatever needs to happen. So I'm just disclosing, those are the assumptions and kind of my disclaimers. Question?
I don't know what a cap table is.
Okay. you, my friend, are going to learn along with everybody else. So a cap table is short for the capitalization table, or the stock, the equity holdings in the company. And so we're going to take you through this process. So Blair, here you are, and you say, hey, to get my earbuds going, I know that I've got to put in $50,000 of cash, work, property, intellectual property, if you have patents or anything on your product, all these things you're putting into the company, and we're today saying that that's $50,000 you're putting in, and we'll give you, what do you think, 1 million shares? He deserves 1 million shares of the company, right? Doesn't matter. Could be 10 million, 100 million, could be 10 shares. But you see, I'll show you an example where we actually run out of shares when we go through these rounds. It's easy to fix. But I've noted here that there's 5 million shares authorized. And pre-money, there are 0 shares issued. What's different? Well, as a board of directors, we have authorized the use of up to 5 million shares. We have issued none. And when I say all that complicated, right? Blair has authorized himself to use 5 million shares, and then he's authorized himself to give himself 1 million shares in his company, right? Because Blair is wearing all these hats all the way through the process. So he puts his $50,000 in. You can see post-money issued shares now. We have 1 million shares issued. They're all in the name of Blair Enterprises, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Blair's Buds and all of his other companies he's going to get started up along the way, right? Post-money valuation is $50,000 because that's just the money, that's the value of what he put in. So post-money per share value of the company is 5 cents a share. It's just a simple math problem. Don't worry, you don't need to follow the math completely. And when I say fully diluted, this will start to make sense as we kind of blow through this cap table. But this is how it looks today. I'm doing this, I'm all in, every penny of my savings, I'm going for it. Well, Blair has a problem. $50,000 is not going to get him to his working prototype. He needs more money. He's out of money. He's out of resources. He's called all his friends and used up all of as much free time as they're willing to give. And so he now needs to bring on investors. And this is always how do I do this, and what's the process, and how do I know what my company's worth, and when's the right time, and what do I do with the money? And I'm not going to go into most of those questions today because I want to get us all the way to the end so you can see the end game. But as you see the end game, it'll help you start to answer some of these other questions about your business and what you're trying to do. So our founding event is done. Blair's cranking. He's doing awesome, but he's out of money. And so he decides, I'm going to do a seed round. I need to raise another $100,000 to get my working prototypes done so that I can get them tested. Who would we need? Do we need to get a CE mark on these, or are we going to sell them in Europe? What's our go-to-market strategy with these? Are we selling them through dealers and distributors, or are we just going to sell direct off a website? What's the game plan?
I would like to do direct off the website at first because there's more profit margin.
Okay.
And then we can start branching out into certain stores.
Okay. And what's your market? Are these going to be popular in Europe, in Asia, in South America, Central America, the U.S., Canada, or Greenland's a phenomenal market, I hear, for wireless earbuds? So you're going all 7. All right, so what licenses, what permits do you need to have in all those continents? Regulatory and quality affairs is going to become your best friend. The business I'm in now is a highly regulated environment. FDA, ISO 13485. We have the Japanese version of the FDA who comes and audits us every 2 years, and China's version, which is the SFDA. We have all these entities, and we spend a lot of money on making sure that we're meeting all the compliance requirements for our business. So there are all those costs. So he knows just to get these things done, get them eligible to sell somewhere with some type, with the right certification. Okay, here we go. We're ready to go. We're meeting regulatory compliance. I need another $100,000. Now, we know that we've got 5 million shares to work with. The board of directors has authorized that many shares. We've issued 1 million to Blair. We have decided, and I won't go into valuation very much today, we've decided that our company today, where we're so close to working prototypes, the company's worth $500,000. All that hard work, all that effort, we're so close to working prototypes. We know this thing's got to be worth at least $500,000. So the pre-money per share price is 50 cents. Simple million shares, or 500,000 divided by a million shares. We are going to issue an extra now 250,000 shares to our new seed investors. This could be what's called the 3F round. Have you guys heard of the 3 Fs? Family, friends, and fools. Grandma, oh Blair, you're my favorite grandson, and of course I'll give you all of my retirement money because I trust you and I believe in you and you're such a good boy. And she pinches his cheek and off he goes with the check, right? Family, friends, and fools. He's working within his network. It's fair to say that Kickstarter projects, the first 50% of what you raise is usually out of that group. Family, friends, and fools, right? And then as you get traction, you break through the 50%, then you're reaching into the second piece of the network, and then to get all the way to the funding goal, then you're usually to third and fourth connections to your initial group of connections. But so he's able to successfully raise this $100,000 at a valuation of $500,000. That now means this is what his cap table looks like. He's no longer 100% owner. He now has only 80% of the outstanding shares, which means that his new investors have 20% of the company. You gave up 20% of your company for $100,000. Was it worth it? He was stuck, right? Didn't have any money. He knows his idea is golden, and grandma believes in him, so he's taking this all the way, right? These are the tough questions that you have to answer as you go through this process. Is that enough? Is it not enough? What are you comfortable with? Again, we'll take you through the whole end game so that you can look back, and hopefully that'll help with the decision making. So we now have 1.25 million shares issued. Our post-money valuation, all that is a function of is what was our pre-money valuation plus the money that was invested. So we're now worth $600,000, or on a fully diluted basis, each share of stock is worth 48 cents. That's not bad, because right here is worth 5 cents. He's stepping up in the world, right? That's a decent return on his initial $50,000 investment, the valuation of the company that's given. All that makes sense?
And there are more shares that have been issued too, right? So I mean, it's worth more than like the 45 or whatever.
48 cents?
It's worth more than that increase than to the 5 cents it was before because there's more shares than before, right?
This represents the fully diluted based on all the shares that are issued, 1.25 million shares.
Whereas before it was only 1 million shares issued, right?
That's right. That's right. So you guys ready to start getting really complicated with this now? All right, this is where the fun happens. Now, $100,000, he blows through that like nothing. He's got his working prototypes done. He's got a website up, but all of his friends go on it and tell him it sucks. They get bounced out. They try to put their shipping information in, and the system forgets it. Their credit card gets rejected because he's forgot to sign his merchant agreement with Stripe or Magento or whoever it is, Authorized.net, whoever he's using. Right, he starts to have lots of those initial, what we call go-to-market problems and issues. So he realizes, oh man, I'm in so over my head. I thought I knew what I was doing. I got all these problems. I got to raise so much more money now just to commercialize and get this first round out there and make it happen. So by the way, I'll stop right here. You can see why kickstarting a project can often be really, really awesome because you don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about giving up part of your company. You can get people to give you money to fund all of these initial pieces of the puzzle. And out the gate, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Rocket Hub, you can go through all the list of them, right? All of them have a lot of these go-to-market issues solved. It's just up to you to drive traffic into your campaign. Go ahead.
I think that Kickstarter and those like Indiegogo, those sort of campaigning mechanics or whatever, do you think those have a lot of success with, I mean, they're desirable because A, you're not giving up the shares of your company, and B, people give you the money based on like today's culture of instant gratification. You look at Kickstarter like, oh, this is your prize for this much money, you know, and this is what we're going to give you. But I never see shares on there.
This is why Kickstarter is awesome. Needing less money from investment will always work out better for the founders. And the other reason why is because you now have a minimum viable product that you just proved without having to bring investors on. Plus, you probably made a little money along the way. Most of those projects don't do that well, but it gets a lot of traction, a lot of buzz, and you'll have a few that really go big. You know, Caleb Light's example with PowerPot. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job with how they've structured themselves, and they've done really well. So does that answer your question? The main benefits are, number one, you're preserving your ownership. Sorry, I feel like I'm standing in everybody's way. You're preserving your ownership, number one, and number two, you're getting market validation. If your idea is horrible, what did it cost you? Nothing, and you raised no money, and you didn't lose investors' money, and now you got to go back and explain to Grandma, rice and beans, Grandma. There's no more going out to dinner. We lost it all. Okay. So we know he's at a point now where he's got a good product. It works. It's decent, but he's hitting all these crazy roadblocks with going to market. So he says, I need another $250,000. So he says, I need to go get angels to fund that. And this is, by the way, that's a decent amount to expect from an angel round. It is about $250,000. Angel investors, you got your early seed, your angels. Angels sit in between that seed round and your typical venture capital type of investment. $250,000 is about their spot. You can see as low as $25,000, as high as $750,000. But 250 is right about where they play. And if he were to go to market and say, I need to raise 100,000 from angels, they might look at him and say, no, we don't want to do that deal. We want to put more money in because we want more stake in the company. So it's an interesting thing when you approach the professional investment community, because we exhausted family, friends, and fools. We got 100,000 from them. Now we've got to go more towards the sophisticated professional investors. It creates some complexity in terms of you've got to understand that market, and you've got to know exactly where each of these players play and how they want to play, and you've got to get your business positioned in a way that it's going to look attractive to them. Justin.
With seed investors, do they just have to go along with what you say because you own 80%? I mean, can they be upset that they're going to lose 3.33% of their shares?
Absolutely they can.
At what point do you, I don't know.
Yeah, so this is where Blair, all of a sudden his job as CEO becomes investor relations. So he's got to go around and convince everybody and his board of directors, which at this point is probably still him. Maybe one or two of the seed investors wants to be on the board. And so as a board, they've got to approve these actions. But if he holds 80% of the voting rights, which by the way, remember I said same class of stock all the way across. So voting rights are the same for all the shareholders. He owns 80% of the voting rights. So the answer is, yeah, they have to go along with him. But he's going to try to keep them happy. He's got to communicate. And all of a sudden, are you spending much time selling earbuds right now or trying to keep investors happy and trying to raise money? You see how really quickly this is hard. In fact, I know a gentleman, I can't say too much. He was in Silicon Valley last week, hitting Sand Hill Road. And I talk to him every night. He's a good friend, and he just was kind of venting about the woes of trying to raise money. And he says to me, he says, Ken, I've totally neglected my business for the last week because I've just been focused on pitching and getting in front of these investor groups. He's like, I gotta run my business. And then I said, yeah, that's a tough way to allocate time. But if you're going to go this road, you have to figure out how to balance that, how to keep the business going and growing, but do the fundraise because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Okay, you're good right now? So Blair has talked to his grandma, and she said, okay, yeah, you can bring on more money. Everybody's good to go. We bring on $250,000, and we go ahead and offer 250,000 shares. So what does it do to our cap table or our capitalization table? I'm at 1.25 million with grandma and everybody else's investment. Now I'm saying my company's worth $1 million. I have people who want to buy my product. I've sold some. Believe it or not, some people actually made it through the website and have been slightly successful. and I'm actually doing pretty well. And so I've got $1 million valuation, which puts a pre-money valuation here. Post-money shares issued will jump up 250,000 to 1.5 million. Post-money valuation, remember it's just taking pre-money plus whatever's invested, so that's 1.25 million. Post-money valuation is 1.25 million. My fully diluted share price is now 83 cents a share. That's pretty good. Now let's see. Remember, Blair started 100%. Then he dropped to 80%. Now he owns only 2/3 of the company. See what's happening? Each round, what happens to Blair? He gets diluted. Ownership has to come from somewhere. The shares issued, and when people come on and they want part of the company, it's got to come out of. You only have 100% to work with. There's your pie. It's got to come from somewhere. That make sense? That's angel round. Now, so Blair's got his website figured out. It's working. He's grown quite a bit. He's getting a lot of demand, but now he's having production issues. He can't keep up because it's just he and his friend that have been in the basement putting these things together. You're getting parts shipped in from China and all over the world, and you're putting the final packaging together. You're sending all these things out, and you've hit major bottlenecks. And you realize, boy, with these volumes, we could probably source to a contract manufacturer. We could save money. All this is going to cost a lot of money to get set up and get going, but once it's done, then boy, this thing is just gonna run beautifully. So he says, I need more money. I can't afford to do that just on what I'm making. So he says, all right, it's time to take my dog and pony show on the road and go back and find some more professional investor money. So in this case, he says, we're ready to raise $2 million because based on his traction, we're saying his business is now worth $5 million. Now, how do I get to that? Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Valuation is a completely different discussion. I'm just jumping up his valuation, and I'm going to play with it here so that you can just see what its impact is. But we're assuming he's jumped to a $5 million valuation. And what that means is pre-money per share is $4, and post-money issued shares now goes to 2.5 million because I gave 1 million shares away for that $2 million. Well, that's as many shares as Blair has. Interesting, right? And now post-money valuation is $7 million. Once you bring the $2 million and add it to what we're saying our valuation is today, and I'm at $7 million or $2.80 on a fully diluted basis. Remember, Blair started at 5 cents a share, and now he's worth $2.80 a share. So he's doing pretty good, even though his ownership percentage is dropping because now he owns only 40% of the company. On a per share basis, he's tracking really nicely. Does this make sense? So is it worth it? Is it not? That's a question every founder has to ask themselves and ultimately answer. So Blair is rocking and rolling. Things are going well. Except we hit a little bit of bump in the road. He says, I've got to raise another $2 million. I can't keep up. I need more facility space. We can cut some or have special molds made to put these earbuds in. We can run thousands of them at a time, and we can go into mass production. All this stuff costs a ton of money, and to get it all set up and make it go right. And now Blair said, boy, just sell them on the website. I was crazy thinking I needed to go out and contact all 6 billion people on the earth. There are all these dealers and distributors who would love to sell my product. Big box, little box, medium box, all of them are interested and they're knocking down my door. Plus, you're thinking about doing an infomercial, and you got all kinds of just amazing things going on, marketing opportunities, but it all costs money. So he says another $2 million. However, he's hit a snag in his business, and his demand has dropped because he's had some quality issues. And so the customers, he's starting to get some negative reviews, negative feedback. He only in this round gets a valuation of 7.5 million for his whole business. Now remember, the round before we were 5 million, and the round before we were 1 million. So it's a pretty small step up to 7.5 million to bring on $2 million more in money. And what's going to happen here is what's called a down round. If I'm an investor, I want every round after me, I want them to pay more for their shares than I paid. Makes sense, right? They should pay more, and then the round after that should pay more and pay more. Well, in this round, look what happens. The fully diluted share price drops to $2.38, and it was at $2.80. So the total per share price, even though enterprise value jumped up to $9.5 million, Blair's stock went down to raise this $2 million. This is a down round, and it happens. In 2007, 2008, 2009, there were a lot of down rounds going on, and there were a lot of investors that were pretty angry because people were buying shares of stock cheaper, the later investors were buying shares of stock cheaper. Why is that a big deal? Well, the earlier you are in a venture, the more risk there is. The later on, your risk should be going down, which means as an investor, your potential return should be less, which means you should be paying more for the stock today and still have an opportunity for the return. Does that make sense? Traditional benefit or risk versus reward little chart. So this is what happened. He hit a rough patch. There were some issues. Oh, and by the way, we should add in there too that his industry got a bad rap because he's had competitors and a few people with their earbuds, they got stuck in their ears and people got electrocuted because they forgot they were in there and they took a bath or, whatever. Somebody died using the earbuds. You have all these external forces that drive valuation and how well a company can do. Blair, with this $2 million, he gets the ship righted, though. He gets this thing completely headed on the right path. So this was a Series B round, and now Series C round, he says, all right, now I've hit my stride. With another $10 million, I can really go global. And every household in the world will have a pair of Blair's buds. So he says, I'm going to raise from Series C $10 million. My valuation pre-money is $25 million. Because with that $2 million, he really, like I said, he turned this thing around. He's got it going the right direction. He's showing the ability to generate this cash flow sustainably and with growth. Pre-money, I'm at $10. Post-money, after bringing all the investment and the additional shares issued. Oh, by the way, look at this. So I had 4 million shares issued in the last round total, but this round I need to issue 5 million more. But how many are authorized? Only 5 million. I don't have enough shares to give, right? So what's Blair do? He goes back to his board of directors, which at this point, most likely, there's somebody from that round on his board, somebody from that round on his board, and somebody from that round on his board. And so he goes back, he says, hey guys, to do this next raise, we've got to authorize more shares. So they say, you know what, this thing's going huge. Let's go ahead and authorize 100 million shares if we need. So now we have 9 million shares issued, and now we've jumped back up on a fully diluted basis to $2.78 a share. Blair's feeling better. His earlier investors are feeling a little bit better about what's happening with the company. So things grow, things go really well, and Blair says, I've always wanted to be the CEO of a publicly traded company. Imagine what I could do if I had access to the public markets. Every time he's had to raise money, he's had to go do his dog and pony show. His slide deck, his pitch, his business plan, all of his legal documents, everything. And he has to go investor group by investor group by investor group, whether it's angel, VC, private equity that's growth focused, or anywhere in between, other institutional investors. He's had to go through this roadshow. He said, if I had access to capital markets, I could issue more shares of stock whenever I wanted at whatever my existing share price was. And I don't have to go through this private money raise process. He says, with access to capital markets, I think we're taking Blair's earbuds to Mars or something. We're going to the universe now. We're going to cover the earth and start taking over the whole solar system. So he says, I am going to do an IPO, or what's referred to as an initial public offering. In this instance, he goes through this long process of underwriting to the point where his shares are now publicly traded in the market. And you can log on to your Fidelity or TD Ameritrade account or whatever, and you can buy shares. His stock symbol is BB for Blair's Buds, right? or BBE, Blair Buds Enterprises, whatever stock symbol's available. He grabs it. Now he's publicly traded. He raises $25 million on the public market by issuing 10 million more shares with a pre-money valuation of $100 million. Post-money, once that 25 comes in, we're now at 125 million in valuation. His fully diluted per share price is at $6.58 a share. Where did Blair start? 5 cents a share, right? All these other investors came in 278, 238, 280, 83 cents, right? Here we are at IPO. But wait a second, Blair only has 5% of the company. He went from 100% owner to 5%. He lost all that money. He lost all that opportunity, right? Or wrong? How does this work exactly? This is how it works. Blair receives a value at IPO of $6.5 million on his $50,000 investment to get the business started. That returns cash on cash. It just means if I put 50,000 in and I get 6.5 million cash on cash, how much am I getting back? He got 131.6 times his cash back. Over the course of 10 years, I assumed in my model, that this whole thing endured out 10 years, all these rounds of funding and kind of the life cycle he went through to go public. That's a compound annual growth rate of 62.8%. Who knows what the stock market's returning right now on average? S&P 500, last 100 years. 10%, 11%, 7%, right? Your traditional stock portfolios. How did he do compared to the stock market? He crushed it, right? And we're all saying, oh man, I should have invested. Should have invested. I had a great opportunity. I should have done it. Seed investors, they did great. 16 times cash on cash. Compound annual rate was at 36.5%, and that was over 9 years. The angels, these guys probably, actually the Series A did the worst because these are the guys that invested right before his valuation dropped, as you recall. So they only had a 22%, but still a 3.3 cash on cash return. The Series B did well, and the Series C did really well because of that stepped up valuation. Remember, their fully diluted price was at 278, and post IPO it went to 658. So they actually did fairly well. They're only in for 3 years, and they 3x'd their money. That's not bad, right? Take that. It's better than the market's returning. Okay? But is Blair more risky than the stock market? Way more, right? He's got one product. He's a one-hit wonder. Maybe he's geographically centered in just one place. I mean, there are so many different risk mitigation things that don't apply to his business. He's not diversified, and he shouldn't be. Right? Core competency is about doing what you do really well. You let investors, if you take this, investors are in charge of diversifying, you're not. If you ever hear a big company says, well, we bought that company to diversify, they're full of it. Companies don't diversify. Companies hone in on like lasers on their core competency, and they commercialize it, and they milk that thing as far and as long as it can go. Diversification is up to the investors. You laser-like focus and do what you do really well. So what are the key takeaways from all this? And we'll have some questions. Maximizing the value enterprises is needed throughout the life cycle of the business to maximize shareholder return. Why do I say that? Because that down round. Look at what happened. Because of the down round, somebody came in and bought cheaper, and so they had more shares. Blair could have had a higher percentage had he not had that down round. So through the entire cycle, you want to continue to grow shareholder value or maximize that shareholder return. The second one, main driver of valuation of the enterprise, is the ability to generate free cash flow sustainably into the future. Customer contracts, all those things are awesome. And I'll mention free cash flow is a finance term. It's cash from operations. So it's before taxes, before financing, before investing activities. It's just cash from operations, and you subtract out capital expenditures needed to grow. And then the last one is always needing less money early on always works out better for the founder. So you've heard the term bootstrapping, right? Bootstrapping keeps you at 100%. and it delays this need to go. Now, did Blair end up doing really well? He did. He cashed out for $6.5 million. He bought himself an island somewhere in the Pacific, and we'll never hear from him again. But he did in his exit, he did negotiate a lifetime supply of wireless earbuds, right? But other than that, he's done. He's out. So he still did fine. Could it have all gone south and he got nothing? Absolutely. That's the game. Okay, what questions do you have? I guess we've got just a couple minutes left. That's it, yeah. Questions, concerns? Go ahead.
So this doesn't really, let me make sure this doesn't really apply to startups until it's past this like verification. It's like, okay, this is something that's solid, either the model or the product, and it's going.
Mm-hmm.
This is towards the latter end of a startup.
That's right, this piece, that's right. So the hope is to take you guys, so as you're going through the startup process, you could look down the road and see what are the implications of the things I'm doing today, and how is that going to impact my end game. That's exactly right. But we took you through, we showed what does all this look like, what happens to your cap table from founding to seed round, which is where you guys are at, right? If you're in the process of getting a business up and off the ground. And you can make a ton of mistakes right here that will cost you big time down the road. Question?
Let's say that the end goal isn't IPO. Let's say it's to acquire before that.
Uh-huh.
I guess it varies probably in what round of funding would happen, but typically what ends up being the case.
Yeah, very few companies go all the way to IPO nowadays. I use that example easily at a Series B or Series C round is when you would typically see a company become very attractive to acquire. In fact, I read your multiples on EBITDA. If you have a company that's doing under 10 million in annual revenue, you're going to be a 3 to 4 on your multiple of EBITDA. If you're over 10 million but not to 50 million in top line revenue, you're usually in the 4 to 5 range. If you're over 50 million, then your acquisition multiple is usually 6 to 8. And so you can see, right, you can sell early, but you realize you're leaving money on the table. But it might be that that's the only way you're going to get where you need to go. Like for us, when we sold, this company had all the networks and everything we needed to break through all the international barriers that we had. It would have cost us so much more. And so it made sense strategically to sell to them, integrate, and then let the product keep going and growing. Does that make sense? That answer your question?
All right, guys, well, thank you for coming.